From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are following at this hour. The Hill is reporting that transgender rights activists, including Chelsea Manning, a former U.S. Army intelligence analyst and whistleblower, took to Capitol Hill on Thursday in protest of a new policy barring trans people from using single-sex facilities on the House side of the Capitol complex that match their gender identity. More than a dozen transgender individuals and their allies took part in a bathroom sit-in in restrooms across from Speaker Mike Johnson's office. The protest was organized by the Gender Liberation Movement, a grassroots volunteer-run collective that brings attention to issues around bodily autonomy and gender. Holding a banner demanding that Congress stop pissing on our rights, protesters chanted. Speaker Johnson, Nancy Mace, our bodies are no debate. Several transgender women, including GLM founder Raquel Willis, entered the women's restroom near the Speaker's office. A video uploaded to the group's Instagram story shows Willis and others washing their hands and chanting inside the restroom alongside another banner that reads, "Flush bathroom bigotry." A second video shows Capitol Police officers arresting some of the demonstrators, including Manning, who smiled at the camera while being led away in zip ties. Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison in 2013 after disclosing nearly 750,000 classified and sensitive diplomatic cables and military reports to WikiLeaks, the media organization founded by Julian Assange. Former President Obama commuted her sentence in 2017. She was jailed again in 2019 for refusing to testify before a grand jury in a case involving Assange, who at the time faced extradition to the U.S. from the U.K. Manning was released after 62 days when the grand jury expired. Johnson announced the new bathroom policy late last month following a similar effort by Representative Nancy Mace, the Republican from South Carolina, to block trans people from Capitol facilities, a move she said was absolutely motivated by the election of Sarah McBride, the Democrat from Delaware, who is set to be the first openly transgender member of Congress when she takes office in January. Now this news from the Pennsylvania Capital Star. The Pennsylvania Department of Education's recent decision to rescind guidelines about culturally relevant teaching practices has some Black educators in Philadelphia worried about the impact on teacher recruitment in a district where the student body is already far more diverse than its mostly white teaching force. In November, the state settled a lawsuit with a conservative advocacy group by agreeing that prospective and practicing teachers will no longer be required to adhere to guidelines that included developing awareness of how their own unconscious biases could affect their approach to teaching and their expectations of students. The settlement didn't ban cultural competence training, and the department promptly issued new, albeit optional, guidelines that preserve much of what existed before. The new guidelines also expand the recommended training for teachers to include trauma awareness and technological competencies. But Black educators in Philadelphia say the settlement agreement has them concerned their state is moving backwards, even as members of the incoming Trump administration have threatened to withhold federal aid from districts that engage in any initiatives that could be construed as promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, known as DEI, which is a frequent target of the right. The Twin Tiers Morning Times is reporting Bradford County Commissioner McLinko and the other commissioners have proposed cutting the Bradford County Library budget by 50%. During the last county meeting, McLinko told library staff and supporters that he was disgusted by the outcry over this and previous proposals and criticized them for not living within the budget the commissioners gave them. The proposed 2025 budget would see the BCL's funding cut from $471,106 down to $243,666, less than half of 1% of the county's overall budget. The library's hours of operation and some staff would also have to be cut. At the last county commissioner meeting, a reporter asked McLinko about his recent appearance on the Average Joe show. If you haven't listened to this podcast episode, you probably shouldn't, because he's a cliche. McLinko parrots MAGA talking points, including the old trope that drag queens reading books in libraries is somehow dangerous to kids. On the podcast, McLinko said, "I am not anti-library, I am anti-crap in libraries. I don't want to see the drag queens and all this other stuff going on in our libraries. I'm also not going to fund nonsense that shouldn't be done with our children." This is ridiculous, of course, and I hope McLinko stretched before that reach. You don't want to pull a hammy, do you, McLinko? During that meeting, McLinko defended his statements on the podcast by saying, "Is this the question on gay penguins? Is this what you're talking about?" The context is the children's book, And Tango Makes Three, about two male penguins at the Central Park Zoo raising a chick together. You know, dangerous stuff that is obviously turning kids gay. I wonder what books the kids are reading that turn them straight. Well, what shelves are those on in the library? While McLinko claims to be concerned about children, it appears that McLinko wants to ban the books and other materials only with LGBTQ themes. MAGA crusaders like McLinko are going after anything they see as woke or morally repugnant. At no time in history have the good guys been the ones trying to ban books or defund libraries, nor to hold book burnings, but that's a story for another day. We must continue to advocate for the Bradford County Library and hold our elected officials accountable for their actions. To learn more about the stories we share, click on the PEP Radio page of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, paequality.com. Be sure to download the Live 365 app to take PEP Radio wherever you go. If you do so, click the donate button on the PEP Radio page to make a donation. All donations matter to us. That's the news at this hour, and now back to more music on PEP Radio.